Hello and welcome to this short presentation on the Bourne Gutter in Western Hertfordshire on observed stream flow during the spring of 2020. On the left-hand side, the striking image of the tribute to the NHS, but the thing I want to focus on in this image just for the time being is this body of water at the bottom, and this is a flooded swallow hole at Bottom Farm. It's a rather enigmatic watercourse, and in the past it's been shrouded in folklore and termed a woe water. And when it flowed, it was a sign of impending pestilence, disaster, or war. Well, currently it's a rig site for its landscape aesthetic, and it's been visited on many occasions in the past, starting off in the 1870s by the Natural History Society of Hertfordshire and the Geologists Association, and visits were made when there was flow, and it was, I guess, like a contemporary pop-up geological trip to take advantage of the good transport network out to this part of the world and get a day in the field seeing a phenomenon which was a little bit unusual. So where are we? We're about 35 miles northwest of London. We're on the chalk escarpment of the Chilterns. To the northwest of us is the Vale of Aylesbury with the lower Cretaceous and Jurassic sediments, and to the south and east is the London Basin. But the area that I really want to focus on is this the catchment of the Bulbourne, really between Berkhamsted and Hemel Hempstead, but in particular this area that I'm circling at the moment is the valley through which the Bourne Gutter flows. It's an intermediate stream, and it very much depends on the seasonal on the rainfall the previous years. We'll discuss later. So where are we? We'll get an ordnance survey map. North there, we've got the market town of Berkhamsted. It's a typical gap town in the Chilterns, and communication routes take advantage of that. We can see the Grand Union Canal. The railway from Euston to Birmingham was built 30 years later. And then we've got the main arterial trunk road, the A41, cutting through the valley as well. But we're focusing on the on this valley when I'm tracing it with my cursor at the moment. This blue trace represents the water flow that was seen in 2014 all the way up to this corner spring here. The valley then cuts northwestwards past Hockridge Farm and through to Hockridge Bottom. The areas in darker blue are of interest to us this year, and this is where we saw surface water in 2020, and we saw surface water emerging from Mount Spring, surface water for about a kilometre or so down to Bottom Farm. We didn't see any flow across this meadow, but we saw the pool at the old quarry pit fill up, another swallow hole. We saw some intermittent surface water here, not flowing, just above the culvert through underneath the A41. And we saw a little bit of spring flow further down, but we'll talk about that in a bit more detail. This is perhaps a slightly better sketch map in that it's a little less cluttered. Reference points again, the Berkhamsted to the north, the communication links that I mentioned beforehand. The areas of interest to us are these areas of darker, heavier blue. The thin blue represents the flow of 2014. We saw, tracing with the cursor at the moment, going up the course of the Bourne Gutter. And of interest to us is going to be this area from Mount Rise, where we saw a spring flow down to the swallow hole at Bottom Farm. Bottom Farm is incidentally, the swallow hole there is fed by a source from below as well as this surface source. So there's quite a big lake there. No flow across this meadow. We see Old Quarry is a significant pool of water, and then there's smaller elements of surface water in this zone here, and then good spring water, good strong flow of spring water down at the bottom, cause a confluence with the River Bourne. We've got a block diagram to help understand what the geology is in the area. This is based on the Geological Survey 1919 map. And just to help orientate ourselves, we've got the north to the bottom right here. The cursor is just circling around Bourne End, which is where we have the confluence with the River Bourne. And I'm just tracing the line of the river, of the stream rather, up to the lower of the two swallow holes. That's the old quarry pit, up to Bottom Farm, and then up to this point here where the G is. And this is probably where, roughly where Mounts Rise is in the Bourne Gutter, and where we saw flow this year. The bottom of the valley is quite gravelly, Deventian gravels, and then they're sitting on the Holywell nodular chalk above, which is in the lima green. Then sitting above that in a slightly lighter green is the chalk rock member, and in the very pale green we've got the Lewis nodular chalk, and right on the hilltops we have the clay with flints. We suspect that there is a ribbon of springs following my cursor, 4 in all, and we suspect that there is a permeability contrast between the Lewis nodular chalk and the chalk member, or internal impermeable barriers such as the marl seams which exist, which are prevalent throughout the Holywell nodular chalk. We'd have to do a bit more work to ground truth that, and maybe some augering is warranted in the future to try and ascertain what the precise stratigraphy is. A key component to seeing flow in the gutter is obviously the monthly rainfall, and I was fortunate enough to be able to get rainfall data from Rothamsted Research, which is about 10 miles to the east of us here over in Harpenden. And this graphic is, we've got rainfall on a monthly basis from 2011 all the way through until April 2020. The red dashes on the graphic represent periods of flow, and so we can see that we had a short period of flow in 2013, quite a period of flow in 2014, and don't forget that's when we had the flooding in the Thames area between Reading and Teddington Lock, and also we've had some flow here in from February really through until May in 2020. But the key to seeing flow is quite a lot of rainfall the preceding year, and even back in the 1870s, Sir John Evans, who led the TRIPSEM, figured out that we required something in the order of 32 inches per annum, mainly falling in the autumn such it can replenish it and recharge the aquifer. Rainfall in the summer and late spring is liable to evapotranspiration and it's not so efficient in recharging the aquifer. And as we see preceding the periods of flow, there is a pretty wet year that has been able to recharge the aquifer, and hence the surface expression water the following spring. We had a pretty wet autumn, but we had a very wet February, and I think that was the trigger that saw the flow. We had, according to the Rothamsted data, in excess of 70% of the average rainfall in February. So that was exceedingly wet, and consequently, a month or so later, we've seen surface flow. Again, we've seen this diagram before, but I just want to get our eye in as I just take you on a little pictorial excursion through the valley. Our first photographs are going to be right at this point here on White Hill, looking down the valley. Don't see any water, but we see evidence of where water has been. We go to the Mounts Rise. We follow the stream for a kilometre or so down to the Swallow Hole at Bottom Farm. jump onto the old quarry pit, and we have some photographic evidence down here in the opposite Vale Farm, and then we have a couple of photographs down here at the confluence where this flow really is quite strong. So here we go. So this is the from White Hill looking down. This oak tree here is just adjacent to the spring at Mount Spring. But what I want to draw your attention to is this ribbon of slightly richer vegetation. The grass is very much greener here, and to my mind that probably suggests that the water table is very, very close to the ground surface. But we don't see any surface water here. But we'll move on down, and this is our first site of surface water. This was on 25th of March. We've got the pool here, Mount Spring, and just a little video of the water coming up and flowing. We do see a lot of surface disturbance there. There's a lot of bubbles coming up, and I think that's air trapped within the formation just being pushed by the waterfront. So that's our Mount Spring. We move down the valley to Bottom Farm, the Swallow Hole there. Both of these photographs are looking up the valley on the same day. You can see that one was in a frosty, different times of the day, and one was a frosty old morning. There's a ribbon of water coming down to the Swallow Hole, which I'm just marking out on this first photograph. This is flooded, and now it's a lake has been generated over 2 or 3 weeks, and it's now almost approaching spill point and will cascade over into the neighbouring gardens. Just another photograph. There's our oak tree for reference by Mount Spring, the ribbon of water coming down here. Absolutely beautiful, gin clear. And now looking the other way, we've got these nicely converted barns, very picturesque, a nice backdrop to this huge pool of water. Where my cursor is at the moment is a gate, and it's through that, or just beneath this, that the water is now cascading out and flowing down across the gardens of that of those barn conversions. The water is spilling out across here, but there isn't sufficient volume for it to flow through this lower meadow of about half a kilometre or so to the next Swallow Hole. But yes, we just haven't had the volumes of water this year. So the next photographs represent of the lower quarry pit. This was taken back in 24th of February. Water levels quite low. This pit is another Swallow Hole. The gravels from here have been extracted and used as hardcore on the A41 trunk road, and the pit itself has been backfilled with cutting material, mainly chalk, and yeah, but it still behaves in the Swallow Hole. It is actually quite deep. It's probably about 6 or 7 feet deep, and this is quite a body of water, attracting some wildfowl. Further on down, opposite Vale Farm, towards the culvert underneath the A41, we can just see some water there. Unable to go much further in the field, there's a lot of young cattle there, and the farmer wasn't keen on us. And then we've got some more surface water here. Again, it's surface water, it is not flowing. And then finally, we get to the culvert underneath the A41. We've moved probably about a good 1.5 kilometres downstream now, very, very close to the confluence with the Bullbourne. This photograph on the 27th of February on the left-hand side is showing it was taken on a pretty grubby old day. There's a lot of surface runoff. Water levels are pretty high, quite strong flow. But 10 days later, it's cleaned up, and it's now a pretty clear stream, spring-fed. It is about 9.4 degrees centigrade, which was the temperatures we got back in 2014 when we took quite a lot of data and measured quite a lot of data on the system. So that concludes the slides. An enigmatic watercourse and a recreational resource, perhaps both. So we can see the boats, the people have been swimming in there during a hot spring, and we've got the horses here just playing around in the water a little bit, perhaps getting a drink after a tough hack. Anyway, thank you for listening. And for more information about this, come and join us in the Hertfordshire Geological Society. Thank you very much.